In my desperate, recent attempts to find an anime that would truly engross me, one that could reel me in with its intensity and refuse to let go until it was over, I actually stumbled upon a rather well-ranked but forgotten anime. One that I was surprised to find was originally written by the critically acclaimed Yukimura Makoto in the years leading up to his hit series, which I'm sure you'll recognize, Vinland Saga, a series that I just recently happened to binge read through. And so it felt like a natural next step for me to explore his next work, or what was actually his debut work. His very first manga, one that after watching it now, I'm sure would have gone down in the books were it not soon overshadowed by Vinland Saga. And so I sat back and dug into Planets. What I initially expected to be a thrilling space odyssey, unaware that it would soon unravel into one of the most philosophical and existential stories I have ever witnessed. The story begins in 2075, and commercial space travel is no longer a dream. People live on the moon, interplanetary space travel is commonplace, and large space corporations, of course, have monopolized and control much of outer space. As a result of significant space exploration, though, the problem of space debris has evolved into a massive issue, with only single bolts wandering through the galaxy being able to destroy huge spacecrafts in one go. And as such, we follow the space debris section of a large conglomerate company called Technora, who clean up space junk and, as a result, are considered to be the bottom of the outer space food chain, as just mere trash men. And we are initially introduced to Ai Tanabe, as she joins a group of incredibly unique but human and goal-driven debris collectors living among the stars. In a way, space is the best backdrop for any kind of story wanting to follow characters pursuing their dreams. It embodies the endless possibilities, the infinity of being able to do whatever you want. But while the story initially focuses on Ai as seemingly the main character, the focus of the show soon shifts to her fellow astronaut, coined as the Diaper Man, Hoshino, but who we ultimately come to know as Hachimaki. Named after the traditional Japanese headband he wears, what is historically worn in Japan as a symbol of effort and courage, it truly represents his ambitious and unwavering character. Hachimaki is determined to someday own his own spaceship, which of course lies far out of the imaginable financial range for a mere space trash man, as they are thought of within the company. But he takes his job and his dreams very seriously. He is quick to punch and beat anyone who makes fun of the debris section, and constantly shuns Ai if she doesn't take being an astronaut in space as seriously as the life or death situation that it actually is. And it is through this constant discrimination and underdog story that we first learn of and immerse ourselves with this group of characters. These people who, against all odds, are trying to make their individual dreams come true, in what feels like a very normal slice-of-life story amidst the backdrop of space in the first half of the series. And then, everything changes. Now this video, it's different from what I usually do. It's extremely rooted in real issues about humanity, but that's because so is this anime. And it's one of the very few times that a show has resonated with me on such a personal level. I'm pretty good at distancing my own story and life from anime, but attribute it to good writing from Yukimura or just a good anime, Planets felt different. And the three central aspects of this show that I'll focus on, that it very deeply explores and work together to ultimately question what humanity is, are human ambition, class discrimination, and purpose. Arguably the biggest theme permeating through this show, something you witness on a small scale in every single character and in the broader sense of things in simply the premise of the series, is human ambition. And most of all, the show constantly raises the question of whether there is an end to human ambition. We use all the oil on Earth for the sake of advancing technology, and once that was dried up, we moved to space. We found deuterium and helium-3 on the moon and continue to use that instead to fuel our ships. We simply move from one source to another once the first gets depleted. Is human ambition so strong that stripping the world of its health pushing us further to an uninhabitable planet are nothing but small prices to pay along the way? I found this to be an ironically pertinent issue when I watched this, especially considering Jeff Bezos' recent launch into space, or rather his 12-minute joyride. Humanity has reached the next stage of evolution, where releasing countless tons of carbon emissions and millions of dollars funding are simply a means to launch a man into space just so he can see what it's like. Just give a glimpse of what's there and return. There's no functional purpose, no scientific advancement. It's simply humans testing what they can do, their limits. And the show dotes heavily on this topic. The central antagonist of the series is the Space Defense Front, a terrorist organization that believes humanity never should have gone into space in the first place. Instead of dealing with issues on Earth, addressing the lack of oil or damage to the environment, humanity decided to just get up and move on to space and pillage that instead. As a mere human in this day and age looking at what is happening around us, you can't help but see our current world reflected in the one in planets that was written 20 years ago. Sure, I suppose if humanity is able to move on to space and supply ourselves there isn't an inherent problem with it. I have no qualms. But is ambition nothing more than humanity feeding off of what lies around us for our own sake? Must it always come at such a great cost? Planets strikes that fear into you. This show is the ultimate critique of the monster of capitalism. The terrorist organization brings attention to a huge goal of the higher-ups in the show, which is to man the first ship to Jupiter. Billions of dollars and human workers going into expanding our knowledge when people back on Earth suffer. It's almost too real for an anime. And that actually brings me into my next point of class discrimination. There are many points in the show that very explicitly demonstrate the effects of class discrimination. It's not very subtle. We are thrown into the very beginning of the story immediately, seeing the poor treatment of the debris section. We see them as the bottom of the barrel. They're the underdogs of the story and remain as such throughout. But then we soon come to see that even they are amongst the privileged, as people from third world countries are outright refused the option to join in on the scientific race of these space conglomerates. Our main characters are Japanese, they're American, they're members of this international organization of first world countries called INTO. The Space Defense Front's biggest problem with the project to go to Jupiter is that the resources gathered there will be distributed proportionally to the countries and companies that funded it. It is the classic dilemma of making the rich even richer. Poor countries with starving children and unvaccinated people reap no benefit from the advancements of so-called humanity. And the debris section often clash with the company because, in a way, they are the only people in this entire show who are working solely for a purpose separate from financial gain. Cleaning up space, though it's the bottom of the barrel, saves lives from potentially life-threatening stuff. The section doesn't perform well financially, it's understaffed, and this is why our characters are the perfect heroes for this story. They can sympathize with being at the bottom, and unlike many other top dogs in the company, are never driven by the organization's gains or money, just cleaning up and saving people. The rich directors of their company often try and push them around, but can't because what they're doing is morally right. In a world where the ones fighting for humanity are thought of as terrorists, is that the kind of world we want to live in? Is the world of planets, is this universe something that we want to reach? And just another mention of Jeff Bezos going to space because I can't get over this supervillain right here.
Hell yes.
It's just more mirroring of planets, of the rich doing what they want. Sending a rocket into space for 12 minutes and just slapping the ozone layer right in the face while he's at it. It's interesting to see, 20 years after this story was written, how things are exactly the same, or actually following in the footsteps, building up to exactly that foretold future. Planets acts as such an ominous foreboding of what is to come and what has already happened. And last of all, purpose. And this one is the most integral to the story and the characters themselves. It has nothing to do with class or the government or money, just Hachimaki. Hachimaki, after he is psychologically damaged at some point in the story, loses one of the most integral traits of being an astronaut, remaining calm and collected in the endless vacuum of space. And what I love about this small sub-arc specifically, something the show makes very clear, is that the problem is solely mental. It is just a matter of mindset, of psychological torment, but losing the ability to remain calm in space is arguably the most detrimental possible thing that can happen to an aspiring astronaut. And it's all in Hachimaki's head. And it is through this arc that we see an incredibly deep and self-reflective telling of Hachimaki's character, one of my favorites and most realistic I've ever seen in anime. Because as Hachimaki struggles with it, he begins to even believe that it's his own fault. That this psychological torment was all caused by himself. That perhaps there's a part of him that has always punched people looking down on him and made out-of-reach dreams, all as part of a show, as a way to excuse his complacency at his job as a debris collector because the goal is simply out of reach, it's far away. That he's just using it as a means of truly trying for nothing, and he chose a goal so impossible to achieve so he would never have to really aspire for anything realistic. And now that part of him, it's surfacing, it's telling him to stop. Everyone in their life questions their path, their purpose. Are my aspirations too lofty? Am I just finding ways and excuses to remain complacent? Hachimaki, both in name and character, is the embodiment of willpower and courage, and this psychological barrier is the sole possible thing he needed in this show to develop his character and grow, to see whether that courage is just a facade or if he can really make his aspirations come true. I have dreams of my own. I want to get a good job someday and have a family, and watching Hachimaki made me think, what am I doing to get there? Am I the same? Am I just living day in and day out, lazing around, thinking it's an inevitability while perhaps it's only a slim possibility? And the medium in which the show does this mental questioning is amazing, because Hachimaki's problem is the fear of space, of the darkness, the loneliness, and the endlessness, of what I mentioned earlier as the perfect setting for endless possibilities. He is scared of the future and the path he might take to get there. In space, he is alone. He is the only one he can question, and more so than other shows, Planets establishes this incredibly introspective and existential questioning both through the character and through the atmosphere and the setting, and that is why it works so perfectly. Now, this video raised a lot of lofty questions, a lot of things that probably can never be answered. But if I had to summarize what Planets said to me, what it asked me by the very end, it is, are your dreams for humankind, for the benefits of others, or are they just for yourself? As always, this has been the Anime Culture Corner. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for future in-depth show, manga, and character analyses.